Okay, in the last lecture, we went over different types of variables that you can assign to identifiers. And we left off with the NA variable. In the previous versions, up to version 3, you could actually assign it to an identifier, and there would be no issue doing this. I can show you this right here. We're in version 3. I moved this over. If you haven't seen this before, this is just it's like a plot function. It's BG color. It outputs to the chart, and all it does is color the background of each one of these bars. But in this example, all we're going to see is just NA because there's nothing to color here. For this variable, we'd want to put in a color. So just to show you what I mean, I'm adding it to the chart, saving, and then all we see is NA, just nothing. The way it would work is you'd put in a color here, and in version 3, you just actually can write in the color. You can also use hexadecimal as well, but in version 4, among some other changes that they made, you would have to write it like this. Now the syntax highlights, and it's okay, but the syntax in this Pine editor is always highlighting for version 4, so it's kind of confusing. You'll think you have it right here. If I save this, it's going to give me an error, undeclared identifier, color.green. So even though it looks like it's right for this color, it's actually wrong. That's just one of those changes you'll need to be aware of when you're working with different versions. That's why I told you guys to stay with version 4 if you can and try to convert it. See, there's a button right here, convert to version 4. But I'm not going to do that because I need you to see this and understand this. So if you are working on version 3, you could literally just type green and it would know what color that is. So now you can see the whole background is all just colored green. And that's basically what this function does. So it works. But in version 4, they wanted to be more explicit with this. So they actually introduced some type keywords. And these keywords are int, float, bool, and so on. So there's actually a line one and a label. And these basically help you identify the type. And there's a color one as well. You don't normally need to use these. We didn't need to use these in the last section because PineScript's compiler in the backend has an automatic casting system, which basically is pretty smart. It can tell what type your identifier is going to be based on what it's equal to. With the NA, it can't really tell. So now you have to be explicit when you're in version 4, and you have to tell it what type it's going to be. So in this case, I want this variable to be a color type. It's still NA. Let me switch to version 4 too, because it won't work. But now the compiler in the backend knows that this is going to be a color type. We can do this, it saves, and it works. We get no errors. Of course, if I didn't have that, PineScript stops me and says defined without type keyword. And the type keyword is this. So we can do that, add that, and there's no background color. So this is the example I want to show you guys. This is the close, greater than the open. And if that happens, then you want the background color to be green. Say if we didn't have these bar colors, then you could do it manually this way. So in this case, whenever the close is not greater than the open, the background color is nothing, it's NA, and then whenever it is higher than the open, it's going to be green. Similar to what we're seeing here. So we do that. I got to change this green variable to actually the version 4. And look at that. So now you have this background color, which is basically doing the same exact thing as the candlestick. It's just changing it to green. And then where it's not, where it should be red or whatever color you want it to be, it's just NA. And now obviously I could make this, I could set this to color red, and then it would be red. But in that case, I don't need to tell it what type it's going to be because the compiler will automatically know based on the type it was initialized at. But if you want to read more about the changes from version 3 to version 4, this is one of the major ones. There are other changes. I'll leave this in the resource section. But they have it in their blog. If you want to get familiar with it and just kind of understand it, they have all the changes they made here. And actually, explicit variable type declaration, this is exactly what we just went over. And you see this is done to avoid a number of issues that arise when the variable type changes after it's initialized with the NA value. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys.